Hey again everyone, this is Stellar Firefly, and in this tutorial we'll be going over how to restore your DayZ databases from a local backup. This video will be specifically aimed at users of DayZ servers provided by GTX Gaming, but the steps we'll follow are fairly generic and should work for servers with any provider, as long as the database may be accessed via the internet. It's just the steps required for you to figure out your database connection info that are likely to be different. If you have no idea what local backup we're talking about here, then check out my other video tutorial, Automated Local Database Backups of your DayZ server. You can get there by clicking on the video preview below, or there'll be a link in the description. The current tutorial will assume that you've already followed the steps detailed in the other video, and that you already have one or more backup files that you'd like to use to restore your database. It also assumes that you've already installed MySQL Workbench and that you know your database login information. The steps to do both of these are also shown in the other video. So just like before, we'll need to make a batch file. Well, technically we don't really need one because the command we'll run may be typed in a single line, but a good batch file will just make things easier for us by storing all our connection info. And here's the batch file. Now, I'm not going to bore you all to death by sitting here and reciting every command in the batch file so that you can follow along and type them in yourself, so I'll just post a pastebin link again in the video description below, and also in the forum thread for this video. Just use that link to copy and paste the text into your own batch file using whatever editor you want, and name it something like restore DayZ database.bat or, well, whatever you prefer. What we will go over, though, is how to configure this batch file so that it works for you. These 5 lines near the top are what you need to customize, and they're pretty self-explanatory, and they're just like the lines in the backup batch file. Set the DB host equal to your server's IP address, and the DB port, just leave it at default, unless you saw a different number when you looked it up in your database login info. Set both the DB name and DB login equal to your username, because GTX Gaming sets them both to the same value. And finally, set DB password equal to your database password. And that's it. Just don't forget to save your changes. And, similarly to the backup batch file, this one runs a command called mysql.exe, which lives in the MySQL Workbench install directory, but it may not be in your system path. And so, unless you set it yourself, then your batch file may have no idea where to find MySQL. If you see an error to that effect, then the easiest fix would be to manually add the path to MySQL right at the beginning of this line, just like the example shows in the comments. I didn't add this by default to the batch file because you may have installed it to a different drive or directory, and also Oracle embeds the version of MySQL Workbench into the install path for it. So if you're using a different version than what I'm using, then your path would be different anyway, and you would have to change it. Again, the comments below that line show an example, so just use that as a guide to set your path correctly. Once everything is all set, then actually using the batch file to restore your database is really easy. Just drag the backup.sql file onto the batch file. You'll see a window appear briefly with a warning that specifying your password on the command line is insecure, but ignore that because you're already using a command line password to create the backups in the first place. When the window closes, then your database will have been completely restored by the backup file. As with the backup batch file, this restore batch file will pause if any errors are detected so that you may get a chance to read them before the window is closed. The kinds of errors that are commonly seen are the same as those detailed in the backup video, so again, check that out if you have any troubles. But the errors are all fairly self-explanatory. If you see errors about access being denied, then make sure you didn't mistype your login, password, and database information. If you see errors about being unable to connect, then make sure your IP and port are correct. And that's it, really. We don't need to set this up on a scheduler because we don't want to restore our database every day or any other silliness like that. So the restoration process is very simple, but hopefully one that you won't ever need to use. If you have any questions or problems, then feel free to ask them in the comments below or in the GTX Gaming forum thread for this video, and hopefully I or someone else will be able to help you out. Thank you all for watching. Please don't hesitate to like or subscribe if you feel so inclined, and as always, good luck, have fun, and watch your back.